Okay, well, thank you for coming. We just thought we would share our perspective on what happened today. From my perspective, I think what went on in the Senate was positive. I think we tried to avoid drawing lines in the sand in the Senate. I think that we highlighted and stuck with agreements that were made, both around three things: the unemployment insurance, the child care, and the Don score. Agreements were made on a bipartisan basis, and rather than force legislation that's not needed, those agreements, at least in the Senate, will be lived up to. In my mind, that portends well for future discussions. We've demonstrated to ourselves that we can compromise, that we need to compromise for the people of Illinois. So I thought it was a good day today in the Senate.
Well, the House, there was a little more activity there today, but what comes out of it is that we're going to work on a collaborative basis, bipartisan basis, the way it worked last week. I don't think those bills are necessary today. And we had a lot of debate on the floor about what happened. But for child care, we're going to go back to the J-CAR in a few weeks, and there'll be action taken with the rulemaking on child care. The governor's already withdrawn his waiver on the Don score. He's kept his word with the administration. We're going to move forward. We're getting close to this November 18th date, and I hope that we can walk into that meeting with open minds, knowing that we can get some things done in a collaborative manner. But today in the House, it was about politics. It's about the negative mail piece, which has been a continuation of the summer and also the fall session. So it's unfortunate, but I felt there was a better way to approach these bills, and I believe, based on my understanding of the negotiations with the administration and also the House Democrats, we could have avoided these votes today. This confrontational type of attitude we've seen and approach, which we've seen week in, week out since the beginning of June. So. But today will be over soon, and let's look forward to trying to find a way to break through this impasse where we can work in a collaborative manner. I will have an open mind as I walk into that meeting on the 18th. I can say I won't speak for Chris, but I know that the governor will as well.
Leader Durkin, you said that this is about mail pieces and politics, but the speaker this time did have a bunch of advocates for social service groups that said collectively, no, we want these bills. The deals don't do it. We want certainty, or when it comes, for example, to the Don score, there are elements left out of the deal that were part of the legislation. It wasn't enough. Well,
we can negotiate that, but the most important thing about the Don score was that we were not going to raise the Don score. That was what was driving this issue, was the biggest concern within the human services community and also with the providers. And the governor, even though the Democrats backed out of what an agreement they had last weekend, the governor followed through. He didn't have to send in his letter retracting on the waiver. With respect to the advocates, I appreciate they come down here. We've been seeing them since the beginning of June, but I think that I'm not going to get into the motivations of the speaker, but we're going to try to help them as much as we can. But they need to remember that it was the Democrats who sent an unbalanced budget by $4 billion to the governor. And there is a certain amount of cover, which they are political cover they're trying to accomplish by having these committee of the wholes, which we're seeing up now in the House floor. We're not seeing it in the Senate, though.
Are you willing to support a MAP grant appropriation?
Under certain conditions. I can't tell you what they are, Rich, but the fact is I think we can find a common ground where we can have an understanding between all four caucuses and be able to fund MAP. So we'll get there. I don't want to see MAP evaporate. We want to make sure it continues. We'll continue to have discussions even after today to try to bring some resolution to it. But I do want to find a way in which we can ensure MAP is going to be part of this fiscal year and also the following fiscal year.
Representative Drury said of the appropriations bill that passed the House that it's just kind of releasing pressure valves all over the place, and there's not going to be any left as Illinois continues to not technically have a budget. There's just no more pressure points. Do you see that, especially if there is? I mean, a MAP grant deal, are universities going to be left alone standing without funding, or?
I can't speak for a representative jury.
You know,
Well, the notion of releasing pressure, not.
well, I think the governor's made it clear that he's trying to do the least damage possible while still trying to strike a deal that has real structural reforms in it. And what I'm sensing at this point is that there is bipartisan support for that approach. I want to go back for a minute. You talked about the child care program, the Don score, and the advocacy group saying it's not enough. Well, that's their job. They're never going to say it's enough, ever, ever, ever. But the fact of the matter is, when you look, for example, at the child care program, the population's been flat, and yet the program's almost doubled in cost. That's something that we really need to get a handle on. So I think allowing that program to continue to go all the way back to 162% of poverty, but still allow the administration to manage it, and the proposal to have a group to study the program is a very valid approach. And it's certainly one that I know Toya Hutchinson, who worked on it in the Senate, was quite pleased with.
The governor says to some of the advocates and some of the folks in need who use the services, you know, I really want this to happen. That's what he says one-on-one. He cut the threshold on the child care thing. We know all about that. The speaker just said the governor's been kind of inconsistent in the last several weeks on some of these. And, I mean, my point is, you know, in 2 years, I can't really figure out what he's all about. What do you think, Bruce Rauner?
The speaker?
Well, that's an enigma wrapped in a riddle or something.
Correct.
What do you think Bruce Rauner's all about?
I think Bruce Rauner is all about finding a path forward for this state that's sustainable, that's going to make Illinois competitive again. And there is no denying that the policies that have been in place under Mike Madigan and the Democrats for as long as Madigan's been here in the last 13 years under Democratic rule have not worked. That's the theme that Rauner has stuck with, yet he's compassionate. I think you saw that when he's trying desperately to offer one olive branch after another to these groups to try to get them to the table to deal with the bigger issues. Again, today in the Senate, I think there was progress made in that direction.
Mr. Durkin, same question?
Well, you know, we've seen what the governor, I think, is about. It's real simple that the status quo of just this budgeting and spending that has gone on for decades, it's not going to continue. The governor has said no. They're not used to having somebody say no to him. The governor is also not, you know, he's been reasonable, he's been fair. This summer was pretty nasty, and all I can say is that this governor wants to find resolution to the budget, one that's fair, though, one that's fair for the first time in a long time. We've had 2 budgets in the last 2 fiscal years that have been grossly imbalanced, and we need to find a resolution, one that balances, you know, revenues balances the spending. We've got to figure out how to do it. We can do it. I mean, we've been through a lot over the years, but the governor is sincere about trying to do things in a cooperative manner. I know there's a lot of tension in this building, but the fact is, the Democrats should take notice of what the governor's done over the past week. He's the one that went to the Democrats and said, let's find a resolution, one in which we don't have to have a adversarial vote on child care or the Don score. And they got very far with it. And Democrats, at least in the House, chose not to participate, or they backed out of the negotiations at the last minute. So, but again, as I started off, I think this is a good sign that there is a willingness, a very strong willingness on behalf of the administration to meet the Democrats halfway, or even more than that, to be able to solve some of these issues that we're faced with that have not been funded in our budget.
Is it fair to call those compromises when the governor is just rolling back rules that he put in place?
Fair, yeah. Well, today's, you know, every day's different, but the fact is, what happened a month ago I'm not concerned about. What I'm concerned about is that we're getting close to the end of our calendar year. The public wants to see the House, the Republicans and the Democrats work together. There are decisions made in the past. I can't explain them, but the fact is the governor right now has said, let's fix these issues. And I think that is what should be the message of today. The governor wants to fix child care. He wants to fix the issues with the Don score with our nursing homes. And to me, that's extremely positive. As I said earlier, we're going into this meeting on the 18th, and I want to see that there is going to be a cooperative tone between the chamber, between all 4 of the leaders. And I plan to do it, and I know Senator Radogno will.
The speaker said he saw this week, the events of the past few days as sort of a mixed bag. Yeah, on one hand, there's some positives, on the other, still wants to talk about all this other non-budgetary issues. Let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most progress, How would you characterize the last few days here?
What I'll characterize up to, I'll say an 8 or 9 over the fact that the governor and the Democrats in the House went, I think, made great strides on finding compromise or some type of resolution to 3 issues. The motor fuel tax bill was one, and we put all the votes on it today. And I've been working with the governor on that for a few weeks, but I would say that the fact that the governor is working and that the Democrats were, up until the last 24 hours, willing to work with the governor to find a resolution, a compromise on those important issues, I think it's a very positive step forward. Now, 8, 9, 10, I don't know, any one of those.
Lita?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's a done deal by any means yet. I mean, I think this is a good step in the right direction. It shows the public and ourselves that we can in fact compromise. I think that the attitude among most leaders is that we need to do that, including on the non-budgetary issues, because they do in fact directly affect the budget. So before you can really have a good conversation about compromise, you need to have sort of an environment or with a relationship that allows you to discuss those things. And that's what I think we accomplished today, that maybe there's some hope that we actually can come together.
So on that scale, 1 to 10?
I'd probably be more 4 to 5.
What do the two of you make of Representative Ken Duncan's role in everything these days?
Have
I
to
don't know,
ask
he made the
Ken.
right decision, but again, I'm not sure, you'll have to speak to him about that, but I'm glad that he did the right thing today by not participating in more political theater, which is all meant for mail pieces. Make no bones about it, but those votes are about negative mail pieces, the way the whole summer's been. This is a continuation of it. When you have the Senate saying that we're not going to take up the child care bill until the rules have been taken care of at JCAR, but they're still continuing on with the vote, I mean, it's not good faith. It's all about making sure we putting Republicans on a roll call.
Even if it means taking the walk, not even pressing the yellow button?
But, I mean, you could say that they already had that roll call, right? They already had the mail piece for that vote. That already happened.
Well, they want to continue on and say, I mean, look, how many
On the
property
same
tax?
issue?
Look, we've done
What's
this
the
with
value?
property taxes all summer, but the fact is, this is right out of the playbook that's been around for a long time down here. So this is more, I mean, it's pretty obvious what it's about. But you know what? I credit Representative Duncan for not participating in it. He wants to get things done. He saw that there was great strides made by the administration with the House Democrats on 3 big issues: child care, down score, and also on the motor fuel tax bill. And for him to say, I'm not going to participate in this nonsense, good for him.
How much of this, the changes that the administration or the compromise, the olive branch, was because Republican legislators were asking him to do that? That they were saying, our constituents don't like these cuts, you need to do something about this, Governor.
Our caucus held strong. We've talked about this consistently, that there needs to be a comprehensive approach. We'd like to see a comprehensive approach on a budget. This piecemeal process, which we've seen over the past 5 months, yeah, it's been a bit of a challenge, but we have a lot of things we discuss in our caucus, and we've got a very good caucus. People are very independent. They talk freely. Most of it makes it out to all the reporters in this room before we even finish our caucus meetings, but that's. But anyway, you know, the point being is that, yeah, there's, on any given day, there's a different issue from one of our caucus members stating that they would like to see a different approach on a different bill. But the fact is, what we're in right now is that ultimately what's going on, yes, it's the issue. Ultimately what's going on is the issue of the day, but the bigger issue is that the Democrats, for the first time, are being told no for first time in a long time, being told no by a Republican governor who's holding his ground and stating that we have to change Illinois. We're going to have to do reforms. That's the only way we're going to be able to get through this. Look, this budget is not, if we are able to break through, if we break through the impasse and we're able to find a budget, it's got to be on a bipartisan basis. The Senate and the House clearly, or at least in the House, it has become abundantly clear to me that they're not going to be able to pass a budget on their own.
On the issue of childcare, though, because the way the map is drawn, frankly, I think there's been less pressure on Republican districts from constituents. Now, I will tell you, Republicans care deeply about the issue of childcare because they understand the importance of early childhood education, saving costs on the out end. But I think the real pressure was felt more by some of the Democrats, and the fact that despite that, Republicans, as well as the governor, wanted to join in a solution that, remember, doesn't turn it all the way back to what it was. The eligibility is still somewhat reduced, but critically, it maintained the ability of the administration to have control over the program. And that would have been removed under the bill that was proposed in the House.
Okay, anything else?
What are your expectations for the leaders meeting? I know you're both gonna be there, but is there anything specifically that you're looking to get out of it, expect will be accomplished, wanna cover?
I hope a meeting after that. I mean, again, building on what happened today, the potential for compromise, the fact that people across the state, both parties, want to see this thing resolved, that we've been able to make some headway in the Senate. I just hope that we continue that atmosphere and maybe identify a few other issues, involve staff, to begin to really piece together some proposals that could pass.
I'd like to see some parameters that we can agree upon, all five of us, when we walk out of that meeting on the 18th.
Thank you.
Well, we don't know.
We haven't discussed them.
Thank you all.
Thanks.